Hey everyone, welcome to the Smiling Homeschooler Podcast. We're glad you can join us. As you can see, we have a special guest who I'll introduce in just a minute. But before we begin, we want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for helping make the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're an amazing math curriculum. Our family loves using them. And if you are wrapping up the school year, thinking a little bit about next year, just what you're going to do, and you haven't tried Teaching Textbooks, you should. And you can check out a free trial at teachingtextbooks.com. Also, thank you to Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ through a community of Christians that pay one another's medical bills. Redeem Health Share helps families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or ministry changes or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more in the show notes or the Facebook comments about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries. We appreciate their support, and I thank them for this cool shirt they gave me. So go check them out over there as well. But all right, let's get started. So we're joined by Lisa Nehring. She is with Blue Collar Homeschool and also True North Academy. And the way we got connected is we had, Lisa, you have to remind me, was it Cindy? Was that her name?
Yep.
So we had Cindy LaJoy on our podcast. I mean, really early. It was maybe one of our first 20 episodes, and we're at 400 right now. So long time ago. And we loved her message. Her whole, goal and passion was, that not every kid has to go through the college route. And you guys have a Facebook group called Blue Collar Homeschool. And I saw that, or a homeschooler, that you were now attached to it. And it looked like she had passed the reins on. So maybe you could introduce yourself, your background, how you got, started with that, and maybe a little about yourself.
Sure. So I like to introduce myself by saying I have one husband, 2 graduate degrees, 5 kids, and a black belt in homeschooling. We homeschooled for 30 years. We have 5 kids that are now between the ages of 23 and 39. And I started True North Academy in 2018 and got connected with Cindy online, actually. And she ended up teaching for us at True North Academy. And then her kids all graduated, and she was going to quit teaching for us and go on to other things. And she's like, hey, do you want to take over Blue Collar? It's really in keeping with what you're already doing. I said, sure, that would work out great. So we took over the Facebook group, and we also own It's Not That Hard to Homeschool. So we have a couple of different things going in the homeschool space and alternative education. True North offers 6th through 12th grade live online and self-paced classes. And we have a new dual degree program where kids can actually graduate with a bachelor's degree when they graduate with an accredited high school degree. So it's 2 accredited degrees and the time it would take you to earn your high school diploma.
Yeah.
So that's how I got connected with Cindy. Great friend, amazing woman.
Well,
I've got
go ahead.
I've got a question already. So how do all 3 of those, what do they say about what's your heart behind all these? Blue Collar Homeschoolers and True North Academy. Yeah. And you mentioned another one called
It's Not That Hard to Homeschool.
Which I love that. I love that.
It's a great title.
Should have stolen that before you got it. But
I actually bought that from Ann Carrico, who started It's Not That Hard to Homeschool. So what's the heart behind it? We homeschooled for 30 years. I wrote my master's thesis decades ago on why parents homeschool their kids. And as a result of that, I wrote a lit review on the history of education in America. And my husband was also in graduate school at the time. And I was reading aloud all this educational stuff. And we just decided, we're going to homeschool. And so we did, and we loved it. I really think alternative education is the best way to educate your kids. There's a lot of different flavors of alternative education now. Way back when we started in 91, there was, you were in a traditional school system, you paid big bucks for private school, or you homeschooled. And so we did that. But we've been involved in micro schools and UMSs and the whole bit. And True North was just an extension of that. I went back to work at a certain point of our homeschool journey, still was homeschooling a couple kids. And it's really hard to homeschool while you're working part or full time. And so I wanted to bring in some subject matter experts to teach my kids. And that's how True North got started. And we're 6th through 12th grade, Cognia accredited. We have teachers from all over the country, and Israel, Italy, and Mexico. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's changed a lot. And blue collars change. I mean, everything's changed. You know, it's just the evolving journey of education right now in America.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess as you know, again, because I do think the angle that I originally really liked that Cindy had was that not every kid has to go through the exact same, we got to go to the 4-year college and we have to, do a degree. So, I mean, is that something you guys still, think that is a good route? And what are those alternatives nowadays? Because there is so many more options now. It feels like that is especially, with so much technology changes right now, that's even been a very, I think, popular thing to talk about right now. So I guess what are your thoughts, when it comes to, is that the route, or can it look different for every homeschooling kid out there?
I think personalized education is the way every parent should take charge of their kids. They're in charge of their kids' educational project, and alternative ed, well, they should personalize it because every child is different. So no, I don't think every kid needs to go to college. In fact, I would say more so than ever, probably kids should really rethink if they go to college. Not the college for all really kind of ruined the college experience, and it watered down education at the college level for one. The costs are exorbitant. Textbooks alone have risen 400% in the last 10 years. So, and you can't resell them. They're all electronic. So there's a lot of problems going on with college right now. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, so we're in a time of real serious disruption across a lot of industries, but we see this really profoundly in education. And so, no, I don't think every kid needs to go to college. I think parents need to really consider the return on investment of college and the return of time for college, because most kids are graduating in 6 years, not 4. So they're in their mid-20s, usually with $40,000 in debt. So they're in their mid-20s with tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and most of them don't really have a solid career field to go into with that debt and that loss of time. So do I think everybody should go to college? No. And I say that in the context of my husband and I have 5 graduate degrees between us. So we're really but we're old. So we lived in a time where education and degrees really mattered.
Dinosaurs roamed the earth.
That's right, exactly. Those days are really over. And even then, when I graduated from high school, probably a third of us went to work, a third of us went to college, and a third of us started businesses or worked for our parents. We had kids who went directly to work, but we also had kids in my graduating class who went to West Point, MIT, Caltech. And that was normal. It wasn't expected everybody should go to college. So I think certifications are very important right now. Skill stacking is the most important of everything. Whether you get a degree or a certification or anything, if you have skills, you're going to be okay. We all saw this in 2020, where those who could pivot did okay. And those who could not pivot, some of those people are still on the struggle bus. Like, how do I regroup from my job disappearing or whatever? So skills are where it's at. And emotional intelligence counts just as much as academic or hard skills.
100%.
So I'm curious, because all of us Wilson kids kind of pursued, I would say, different routes than the typical college experience. But I'm curious what your kids did. They're all graduated, obviously. Some are, I think you said the oldest was 31 or 32?
39.
Oh, 39. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got far removed and not so far removed, but tell us about like their journey and how that affected them.
So my oldest daughter went to Europe after high school and did mission work for like 4 or 5 years. And then she got a full ride 4-year scholarship to a small Christian college. And she did that. My second daughter had a frontal lobe head injury from a car wreck. And she was like in recovery mode for several years, but she went on to do a cosmetology degree and then moved away. So I didn't reap the benefits. She's phenomenal with color and all the things. And sales, she's a terrific salesperson. My third son went to a state school and did the Nat Guard during it. So he paid for it that way. My fourth son went to a small classical college in South Dakota and graduated while he was teaching Latin online. So we paid for it that way, but that school has since closed. 25% of colleges will close in the next 10 years. So parents, heads up, like if you have your kids go to college, look at the financial and fiscal viability of that school, because if they close midstream, your kids will lose time and money. Anyway, he graduated before they closed. And then my fourth daughter did about 1.5 years at a small Christian college. And she called me up and she's like, I learned more in junior high. I'm not spending my money. She paid for part of it. So part of the reason we started the bachelor's degree program through True North, which it's fully accredited through partner colleges and universities, is in response to her experience, honestly. And not that she needed a degree. It wasn't that we were like, I would say my husband is probably more pro degree than I am at this point. But my thought was, you started it, just finish it. And so we found an alternative route for her to complete that degree. And she did it in just a matter of months for pennies on the dollar compared to what we were paying. So I think traditional college is really, parents reconsider, literally.
A couple thoughts that
you mentioned. Sorry. You mentioned skills stacking. I've not heard that term before. I have a guess, but how would you describe that?
So there's a couple of different skills to consider. There's academic skills, of course. Can you write? Can you write a solid professional email or an essay? Can you do research? And I don't mean bias confirmation. I mean true research, like you look at a variety of issues and come to a conclusion based on facts and data and stuff like that. So there's academic skills like that. There's also life skills. Can you cook dinner for yourself? Can you figure out what your car needs as far as oil changes and tires and stuff like that? And then there are soft skills. Can you communicate well? Can you critically think? Those kind of things. Also, do you have emotional intelligence? And we're in this age of AI where everything's changing. Industries are changing very quickly. Entry-level white-collar jobs are getting really squoze out because of AI, because AI can do it faster and with more precision and things like that. But if you have skill stacks, you can go from job to job. Now, most of the kids in Gen Z or X, I think, whatever generation
everyone we're on,
everybody, they're going to live and work in a global gig economy. So they're going to have between 13 and 15 jobs probably over the course of their lifetime. They're going to live longer than the dinosaurs amongst us. They're going to live longer and have more jobs, but they're going to have to probably do a lot of sales. They're going to have to find the work. They're going to have to close the sale, invoice, those kind of things. So those are skills: how to sell, how to pitch, how to invoice. So a combination of hard, soft, and life skills.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, real quick, I do have a couple thoughts after some of the stuff we've talked about, but before we get into that, I do need to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for helping make the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're just an amazing math curriculum, and it's really made math time at our household much more enjoyable. You can do it from any device that has an internet browser, so it's really accessible and easy to use. So we really appreciate their support, and you can check out a free trial over at teachingtextbooks.com.
And we also want to thank Redeem Health Share of Samaritan Ministries for making today's show possible. Part of being a parent is making sure everyone is taken care of when medical emergencies happen. And everyone knows that summer can tend to bring those things up. Don't sweat it, because being members of Redeem gives you peace of mind when it comes to unexpected medical burdens, so you can enjoy the summer with your family. So check them out today at redeemhealthshare.org or in the link in the show notes or the Facebook comments below.
Yeah. So, so far, and this is a little more on the inside baseball, I kind of have to come up with a title for the video ahead of time, and I put raising capable kids for the real world, and I think that's something for, what a lot of this boils down to is that kind of flexibility you mentioned, like during COVID, of being able to handle different things and not just being, this is my one thing I went to school for. If I don't do exactly this, then I got nothing, and I think that homeschooling leads to that in a very powerful way. I mean, I've seen that in our family. I have friends who have been homeschooled. I've seen that, and that ability of just, I think you mentioned like the, we at my office, we call it the human train. That is this thing that will not get replaced. Is there's still going to need people who can communicate, who can help people, who can understand, what people's goals are, things like that. And I think homeschoolers have a huge leg up in that, in terms of just the ability to learn to love learning, to not have just this rigidity and same thing day in and day out and all that kind of stuff. You can really tailor it. So I think if you are, obviously the people who are listening to this are homeschooling, I think your kids have a huge advantage in this way, that I think they're going to really excel because of that. But also something that you brought up earlier, I think is really often not mentioned. I don't really hear I hear always people talk about the debt load of college, but I don't hear people really often bring up that 4 to 6 years of not working that is also a cost as well, which obviously the ideal would be that you then get a huge salary afterwards that then leads, makes it worth that. But that's not always the case. And that 6 years potentially of actually being able to start ahead of time and working, and then, you have no debt, that actually adds up to a significant head start if you really think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go to work at 18 and you're in one of the skilled trades right now that are really popular or needed, like electrical work, you can be making 80,000 in a year or two. You do 80,000 times 4, you're at well over $250,000 versus 6 years of taking out debt and not working. You have experience under your belt. I mean, it's a totally different way of approaching the world.
Well, and you're, even as you were saying, though, I mean, sometimes people, they use the argument, I'm going to go and I'm going to be something after all that education and all that debt, but oftentimes they get the same jobs as all your other kids
the
did.
Rest of us.
They're still working at the coffee shop.
They are, and a lot of kids are very underemployed right now because, again, AI is really squeezing out those entry-level white-collar jobs. The other thing no one's talking about with college. So we have some huge Facebook groups where a lot of the we're always doing polls like, where are you preparing your kids to go after high school? How can we help you? What resources can we provide? And 3 or 5 years ago, it used to be college prep. Now it's like, oh, I don't know, not so sure. Maybe college, maybe direct entry to work, maybe a blue collar trade, maybe entrepreneurship or military or service organizations. And so I think parents are really waking up that college isn't necessarily the way to go. Over 40% of kids who start college drop out. And a lot of those kids have debt. So that's one thing nobody really talks about when they're like, I want to leave all my kids' options open. Of course, we're doing college prep. What's your plan B if they drop out? And there's a lot of reasons for dropping out of college. But I think that's something to really think about too, is that if your whole focus is getting into college and you've foregone a really robust and rich high school experience, which homeschooling sets you up to do so beautifully, then what do you do afterwards? You don't have a plan. You haven't developed those life skills and some of those standout factors that if you just chill out on maybe that focus, you can have time to do.
So what could, for a mom who is, does have a kid that she's pretty sure that they're not going to probably go the college route, what could that look like in terms of maybe trades? Like, how do they even get started? Like, how do they encourage that in their child who's maybe interested in that? What would you suggest kind of starting out with those kind of things?
Well, I have 2 responses to that. First, I think everybody should start a business in middle school or high school. If you're homeschooling, you should absolutely have your kids start a business because entrepreneurial skills they'll teach your kids all those soft skills, hard skills, EIQ, all those things, and they might make some great money doing it too. So have your kids start a business. If you don't know how, just bumble along with them. You're not going to lose out on a lot of stuff. I talked to somebody at a conference a couple weeks ago. Her 4, 6, and 2 8-year-olds started a pooper scooper business. They have 20 backyards on their route a week, charging $25. That's a couple grand a month. She said it takes them 5 minutes because they know they're banking that money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you don't have to have a lot of like really tech skills or high-end skills to start a business. And then secondly, I would say there's a couple different ways to go into the trades. You can do, you can job shadow somebody, you can go to a tech school. The military service is a great way to learn some trades and you get paid pretty well. You have benefits. There's some costs, that you sign off possible loss of life and limb. So you got to take that into account, but there's a couple of different ways to go into the trades. Find a tradesman or craftsman and ask them how they got into the trades. The other thing too, with trades, a lot of the boomers are retiring and a lot of those trades companies like the HVAC company down the street or the roofing company or the electrical company are owned by boomers who are retiring or passing away. And their kids don't want their business. A lot of times they're very well established. They make really good money, but they haven't upgraded their social media or their finances. If you could help your kid buy a business at 18, 19, or 20 instead of investing in college, they might be able to acquire a really great business that is owner financed because most people who started a business don't want to see it die on the vine, right? But a lot of people don't realize they can sell their business. And if they own or finance, they can also stick around for a year and help the person learn the business So they get the expertise of the owner, the previous owner. It could be owner finance, and they could walk into a great business right now. So a lot of the small businesses that we've come to rely on are owned by boomers, and they're exiting their businesses. So that's a great way to get into non-college required business without debt. I mean, it's a fascinating concept,
Don't you think that that's really a mind shift change, not only for kids but for parents? Because really, there's this glamorized thing that we want all our kids not to start some kind of software giant company or become influencers, and they think that of themselves. I mean, it's harder. Like Catherine just had someone give her a quote on cutting down a tree, and it was a lot of money, and she asked her kind of cousin-in-law whose husband does that, and he would have said it was going to be double that. And I'm like, but nobody wants to go cut down trees. They all want to be a YouTuber, and I think parents kind of think that too. Oh, I want them to be and I'm thinking, they're sacrificing a great life where you get to be outside and you get to work with people, and you can't AI cutting down trees. You can't have it done in China. And there are a lot of those, but it does take kind of a mind shift change, and parents kind of have to be okay with that, because I think they think, when you're listening to all these other parents and they're saying, oh, my kid's going to be a nuclear scientist, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And my kid wants to do something not like that.
Not like that. I agree 100%. I think a lot of parents in the homeschool space, I hear this all the time at conferences. My kid's gifted. And I know you hear that all the time, but my kid really is gifted. And I work with gifted kids, and it's a very small percentage of the population. Most of us have smart, curious, intelligent kids. Okay. And the reality is there's this idea that we have to work in our passion. And I grew up listening, follow your passion and the money will follow it. That is the biggest BS, if I can say that, Eve, on your podcast. Follow the money and the money will follow. Okay, you edit that part out.
That's okay. I'm kidding.
We don't have to work in our passions. We can go to work, have a job, and afford our passions. Here's an interesting stat. Most MDs don't go into medical school because they love medicine or people. They go into medical school because they have a very expensive hobby they want to finance. And I think that's something to really consider. So parents, help your kids backward engineer their life. What kind of lifestyle do you want your kid to have? Do you want them to be stressed out in a high-end tech thing where they're competing all the time with brilliant people and AI? And maybe we need people like that. But there's like one Elon Musk in the world. You know what I mean? But we all need our trees cut down. So you want to make a 6-figure life and go home and have dinner with your family every night, maybe consider cutting down trees. I mean, and the reality is, like, the blue collar jobs, they're expanding. Now, everybody's saying, I'm actually doing a lot of writing on this right now, that white collar jobs are going to squeeze out, but so are blue collar. But the reality is there's always going to be jobs for people. We're always going to go to work. There's dignity in work. People will fight to work because we all have that. We're called to work. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to just give up work and just sit on the beach all day. Although I do recommend that, I'll be honest. Blue collar jobs are changing too. They're wearing smart glasses, HVAC. People are wearing smart glasses, and the smart glass can automatically tell the warehouse what size bolt they need, and a drone will deliver it to the work site. Like, there's some crazy stuff happening right now. They're also 3D printing body parts. They just did an esophagus implant that was completely 3D printed, which is crazy to think about. That's actually a tech job. That's not a medical job necessarily. So all the definitions that we've come to rely on, they're kind of blowing up. And I think we just, as parents, we have to be really thoughtful and prayerful. And keep in mind, we have the stewardship of these beautiful children for just a very short time. We're called to train them up in the way they should go. So who are they? Who are they in the world right now? Because that's our job. That's our mandate as parents, is to see them and understand the world and guide our kids well. So regardless of any job training, faith training, I
Yeah.
think is really the
100%.
utmost appointment. And God's gonna show our kids the way if they're faithful to follow Him, where they should go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Lisa, we're just about out of time. And I know there are some people listening who are very interested in what you have to say. What's the best way to find out more about what you have to offer?
Yeah, you can go to itsnotthathardtohomeschool.com. We have a podcast over there, and I talk about the future of work, the fourth industrial revolution, and stuff like that over there all the time. Head on over to truenorthhomeschool.academy if you're looking for live online and self-paced classes. Our goal is to get our kids future ready. And so all of our classes really are focused on actual skills for your kids. It's not just about credits, it's about skill building. So
That's what we're all about. And that causes smiles. So, Mom, I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you were challenged. Because, I think the most important thing is that whatever path our kids take, because they always look back at us to see if we're smiling or not. And maybe they'll pick something that doesn't fit the influencer, YouTuber, cool thing. But as long as we're smiling and applauding, I think they're going to be okay. So have a great weekend. I hope it's warming up where you are. We're getting ready to go down to FPA and Orlando, Florida in a couple weeks, and then points beyond. Have a great week, and you should start thinking about landing the ship, the plane, because we're May 12th as we do this. Don't go past the end of May. Just stop, and but you need to start thinking about that as well. So have a great week, and don't forget to smile.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Again, thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making this all possible. Go support them. Check them out at a homeschooling convention if you're going to one, and or you can go get a free trial at teachingtextbooks.com. Also, again, thank you to Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ and serving one another through healthcare needs. As Dad likes to say, we use, love, and recommend Samaritan Ministries, and you can learn more in the show notes about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries. But everyone, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. Don't forget to smile, and we'll see you next time.